The occasion of swearing in our new Deputy Director of Law Enforcement Services, Chief Buds.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for giving me the time and the opportunity to introduce our next Deputy Chief of the Western Springs Police Department. It is my honor and privilege to stand here before you today and to the community to present the man on my left as your new Deputy Chief. This is a special night for the police department, and we have several of our members that are present tonight and our fire department brothers and sisters that are all here. It makes me proud to be among you and serve with you and serve this wonderful community that we call Western Springs. Dan Albrecht, Deputy Chief Dan Albrecht, to my left here. A little background on Dan. Dan has been a long tenured employee of the village, dedicated and hardworking for over 17 years. Some of the things noteworthy things that Dan has accomplished, too many to name here, but highlights of his career are he's been a sergeant for the last few years. He's led the detective unit as a sergeant. He has served on numerous task forces, has a wonderful reputation with various state task forces, local, state, and regional. One of his major milestones is that he was essentially our founding father of our crimes, internet crimes, our task force in solving crimes, and he's made a lot of big arrests and got a lot of bad people off the streets that have victimized children in our area and others. So I applaud Danny for taking that initiative all those years. He definitely put us on the map for that particular component. He has earned many awards over the years, meritorious awards, you name it, commendations. He has done that. There is no harder working man or woman on my department than Deputy Chief Albrecht. Dan is also a graduate of the Northwestern Police Staff and Command, and I am looking for great things from Deputy Chief Albrecht, and we're looking forward to serving you and the village as your chief and deputy chief for many years to come. And without further ado, I would invite our Madam Clerk to administer Deputy Chief's formal oath of office.
Now, you know the routine very well.
Go easy on me.
Okay. Okay. I,
Dan Albrecht,
having been appointed
having been appointed
to the office of Deputy Director, Department of Law Enforcement Services
to the office of Deputy Director, Department of Law Enforcement Services
in the village of Western Springs, County of Cook,
in the village of Western Springs, County of Cook,
do hereby swear
do hereby swear
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States,
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Municipal Code of Western Springs.
and the Municipal Code of Western Springs.
And I will discharge the duties
I will discharge the duties
of the office of Deputy Director of Law Enforcement Services
of the office of Deputy Director of Law Enforcement Services
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And if you could sign here. Okay, you are official.
Thank you.
Very,
you, Chief.
very proud of you.
Thank you, Chief.
You want to introduce some of your family?
Before I do introductions, I'd like to thank the board, the village, Mr. Ingrid, and of course, Chief Buds. To say I'm anything less than humbled and honored to take this position would be incorrect. I couldn't be more honored to take this position. To think 17 years ago, if somebody would have told me I would be serving as a deputy chief for the police department or any police department, I probably would have given you a typical response of nonsense. In fact, most people that know me probably would have thought I would have switched jobs 3 or 4 times by now. I have to say that one of the best decisions I have made is to stay with the job with the Village of Western Springs, and it's been a great run for 17 years, and I really look forward the next 10 years as deputy chief. Thank you very much, everybody. I would like to recognize my family, Tammy, my children, Mandy, Kaylee, Mikey. My daughter Alyssa cannot make it due to an obligation. My father and mother, Pat and Dan Albrecht. Other people I've worked with, Leo, his wife Trudy, Charlie, Sue, my brother Greg, Dean, and all the staff of Western Springs that is here in the fire department. I thank each and every one of you for showing up and being here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Buds. And Dan, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, congratulations on your new appointment. I've sat here for 8 years, and I've seen you advance through the ranks of the department, and we are fortunate to have an individual of your quality and character on the department. And I know that you will serve the department well and the citizens of this village well. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Guys want to stay? Okay, this brings us to the portion of our meeting entitled Citizens' Comments. This is where we invite our residents to come forward and bring matters to our attention that they think we ought to hear. I see there's quite a crowd here this evening. I'd like to remind the audience that we try to avoid repetition. If somebody makes a comment, it doesn't do any good for us to hear it more than once. So I ask that you keep your comments to new and refreshing. And that being said, is there anybody that wishes to address the board? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is...
Sorry, you'd have to slide it up. You should see a green light there.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Adam Shills. I live in the 3900 block of Grove and have lived in Western Springs for 22 years. I'm a regular voter. I'm very proud tonight to speak for the big majority of Western Springs voters, the 67% who voted for maintaining paid sick days and the 60% who voted for the minimum wage. Implementing the Cook County ordinances on paid sick days and on minimum wage would not make Western Springs a good town. It will make it an even better town, in my opinion. Paid sick days will lead to a stable workforce, will prevent illnesses spreading, will help family stability and responsibility. It will also create a better mood in the workplace. The minimum wage is the only hope of normal life that employees in Western Springs would have. One cannot...
You have to face it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Can't see you on TV.
That's a tragedy. The only hope of a normal life citizens in Western Springs can have will be to live on the minimum wage, not below it. People cannot be productive workers and productive members of our community if they earn less than that. The fundamental issue then before us is fairness and decent treatment of working people. That's why I'm quite confident that the board will vote to implement the Cook County ordinance. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Lisa Kuba, a longtime resident, about 28 years of Western Springs. I'm a small business owner myself, and I've served 2 terms on the school board, so I can certainly empathize with all of you sitting here today. I would also like to address the minimum wage ordinance. But I'm also proud to represent the majority of voters because I'm also, even as a small business owner, in favor of remaining under the ordinance. The ordinance is the law. To opt out is taking an action that removes us from the existing law. And it shifts the burden from, instead of having to have a reason for disregarding the will of the voters and the residents who voted in majority to advise you that they want to stay under the ordinance and they are in support of the wage, you'd have to have a compelling reason to disregard the will of the voters. And even a temporary opt-out is an action that removes us from the ordinance and places the burden on the residents here to again justify why you should go back into and sustain the minimum wage. And that's bad policy for this village. One, you don't really want to pit the residents who have come out in favor of the ordinance against the businesses here. So I think that's bad policy. Two, you know, we have been recognized as one of the most affluent villages in the state. It sends a horrible message to the public of who we are, to say that those who come and serve our community, you know, are not worthy of earning a living wage, and that we're not only does that disregard the will of the people here who are in favor of it, but the village would actually be complicit in sending that message that we don't think the people who come here are worthy of a decent living wage. And that is not the feeling of this village, and that is not who we are. Third, you know, I think there is a, you know, some concern that there could be a patchwork of some villages that are in and some villages that are out, and that's bad for the state. But you know, the dysfunction in the state, and Springfield shows no indication that in any time soon is there going to become, you know, a functional government in Springfield. And the dysfunction shouldn't be borne on the backs of those who are trying to live on a day-to-day basis. And I ask you, with the current 825, how many of us could live with gross wages of $17,160 a year? It's unconscionable. And actually, I think there's a benefit to creating this patchwork, because if you have some villages like ours who support a living wage, and you have others that don't, the people who live in the workers in those other districts are going to clamor to Springfield and say, we want a state law that's going to lift all of us. And those who live in villages like us could grab the ears of Senator Radonio and, how am I missing, our representative, who's also the leader, the Representative Jim Durkin. Very powerful people, and we could say, look, we don't want to be disadvantaged. They are our local representatives, and you certainly have a right to reach out to them and say, you know, we're in favor and we don't want to be disadvantaged by neighboring villages that choose to opt out. And I also feel that there's a better way. I think that if we honor the will of the people and we use that as a win-win situation, and we say that we will honor the will of the people, we're going to remain under the ordinance and require a higher minimum wage, but now it's up to you, the residents, to support the local businesses. Join forces with them, make sure you shop here, make sure your friends shop here, that you eat your dinners here, and patronize the businesses that are willing to support you because you've asked them to remain under this ordinance. That's win-win. And if a business says that we can't afford to pay a living wage, I think it's not the village's responsibility to determine what's wrong with the operations of a company that can't provide minimum wage. And I say that as a small business owner that also is squeezed by the Grangers and the Home Depots and, you know, a lot of the other large companies. But it is our responsibility to create a business climate that encourages people to come here, shop here, feel good about our village, and patronize our village. And that's where the efforts can be spent, in really creating opportunities for the businesses to thrive, but not on the backs of the workers who come here to serve us. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Yes, sir.
evening. My name is Jay Stewart. I'm with the Cook County Bureau of Economic Development. I'm here tonight on behalf of Cook County Board President Toni Preckwinkle. She's written a letter to the board. I've given it to the clerk, and she's distributing it. I'm just going to read the letter briefly. Dear President Roediger and village trustees, economic development has been a priority for my administration since I took office in 2010. I am committed to financial health across the board for all of Cook County and our residents. That goal requires a strong and healthy workforce. Last year, our Board of Commissioners approved 2 ordinances aimed at building that workforce. One gradually raises the minimum wage of the county to $13 per hour by the year 2020. The other allows employees to earn sick leave time, paid sick leave commensurate with the number of hours they work. I was pleased to support both measures and thank the commissioners who brought them to the board. Sustainable growth requires growth at every level of the economy. A healthy workforce benefits us all. Yet a recent survey of food workers showed that nearly 90% of them went to work when they were sick. This defies common sense and is not good public policy. And when people have more money in their pocket, they spend more. Local businesses benefit from this increased spending. A number of municipalities are passing ordinances in opposition to ours. By doing so, they are essentially denying benefits that have been awarded to our residents by the county board. Paying people fairly and allowing them a limited number of earned sick time supports economic growth. These actions complement investments made by the public and private sectors to grow the economy. Under my administration, Cook County has worked hard to support economic development through such mechanisms as tax incentives and transportation investments. We collaborate with local leaders on these matters. Regrettably, this spirit of cooperation is lacking with the minimum wage and earned sick leave ordinances. That is most disappointing. I'm committed to increasing economic equality, opportunity, stability, prosperity, fairly and equitably in all of Cook County. This requires fairness and, above all, common sense. Toni Preckwinkle. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Tell me we're going to talk about flooding or something. No.
Mike Vespa, and I'm not here to talk about flooding.
Okay.
I believe the last trustee meeting conflicted with the tollway session that was occurred up at the Hinsdale Oasis. I had an opportunity to attend that, and it was not so much a Q&A session as it was just an information providing session by the Tollway Commission. One of the things that came out of that, as you know, is they have a plan now in which they're looking to continue progress on with that plan. And they did state in post meetings that our village is active in a lot of those conversations that are continuing to ongoing. The reason I'm here tonight is there's still not good question and answer being provided by the Tollway Authority. And after that meeting, I had an opportunity to speak with the chief engineer that was there to provide the update, as well as their chief communications lead and marketing lead that was there. Similar to how this board supported Ridgewood previously with ComEd, and had ComEd come in and have a direct Q&A session with the residents of the Ridgewood subdivision. Both of the individuals that I spoke with there last night said that if this board will support it and push for it, that the Tollway Commission will come here to the village and have a one-on-one Q&A session with the residents of the village. I know that more than just Ridgewood has concerns, but I guess my ask of you this evening is as you participate in those, if they're willing to actually come and have a live Q&A session, not just take questions and respond via emails, I think it would be very helpful and a positive measure forward to have your support and ask them to come and have one of those meetings. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Vespa, I think that is certainly a good recommendation that you have made, and one that I think that makes all the sense in the world. We did meet with the Tollway recently and listened to what the concept of their plans were. I have found them to be very receptive to our concerns. I think one of the problems is they're still working out, what it is they're going to do. So I think that'll take a little time. I don't know, Mr. Higgins, maybe sometime this
it's-
summer, I
yeah.
think they said they would
I
have
think
something more
that-
definite.
Well, number one, I don't think the Tollway Commission itself would come out here. But the planning department, the engineering department.
Yeah,
some of
I
those
mean, the people that actually are
You're
doing
not
the
going to
work,
get the
you know.
elected officials holding a hearing here, I'm sure. They don't know. They've done some very preliminary stuff, and this is a project that's going to extend over the next decade, probably. And I think that when we get the real preliminary report, which probably isn't going to be until the end of August, it's a lot of wasted time on everybody's part.
Yeah, but I think once they have that
But
report.
once they've got that, they're committed to come out and meeting with homeowners groups and all sorts.
Yeah, because right now, what
Neighborhood groups.
they're gonna tell you is, this is what we're thinking about. Well, you know where that's going, it doesn't mean that was gonna happen. Things will change 6 times before they actually finalize something. And my thought was that, given their willingness to, explain exactly what they want to do, once they've decided what it is, I think, having like a town hall meeting or something like that, or some kind of presentation with.
Well, I think there'll be more than one, yeah. I think there
Yeah,
may be able to arrange a meeting with the Ridgewood Association, Timber Trails, and other people that are gonna be a Commonwealth. But that's 6-8 months from now, probably.
I understand. I'm not as close to it as you. I'm just going based upon what they shared at that meeting. And I understand that it may be several months till something's more solidified, but I also know that it takes planning and advanced planning to get those meetings scheduled and to get their time before it's booked up. So I guess that's just my request is can
I
you just
understand.
continue to work with them and share our desire as a community to have a very open Q&A session when the time's appropriate. And our voice is through you at those meetings. So
Yep.
thank
I
you.
understand.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Fessler.
agree.
Yeah. Anything further? Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Jim Longino. Thank you.
I think you might need to turn the mic on again. Sorry, you might have to slide the button.
Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen and ladies. My name is Jim Longino. I'm a resident of LaGrange, and just recently we went through the same debate about the minimum wage and earned sick leave ordinance that you are looking to opt out of tonight. I have a couple of questions. This debate about the minimum wage and earned sick leave centers around a few questions in my observation. First, why are we even debating this? Everyone on this dais is sick leave. You don't go broke being sick. Your wages support your household. The people that earn minimum wage, when it's raised, will see more dollars in your community because the employees can afford to purchase in Western Springs as well as where they live themselves. And like Seattle, there's a huge correlation between raising the minimum wage and greater economic development. I was a volunteer on numerous committees in my village and economic development for the Western Suburban Chamber of Commerce about 10 or 15 years back. I'm a small business owner. I pay my people well. I know that some businesses here also pay above the minimum wage, but I think there's a principal issue here. A national small business study also shows an overwhelming support for raising the minimum wage. Second, your village residents, and this is important, like mine, overwhelmingly supports this minimum wage earned sick leave. These were through ordinances that were on the ballot over the last couple of elections. The voters have spoken. The issue is that the current wages do not keep up with their costs that these individuals who are earning are seeing. If you have a principal issue with the Cook County enacting this fair wage minimum wage, then instead of opting out, propose an ordinance now that supports the same or better than the county's ordinance. Otherwise, do not opt out. Otherwise, the argument to opt out would be hollow. So you can take an action by proposing your own ordinance that would equal or exceed what the Cook County proposes, or you not. And if you don't, then you are a part of the ordinance and people will receive that minimum wage increase July 1st. What does it say to workers here? It says that currently LaGrange supports this and other affluent communities that do not. You're concerned with business cards. They say that might bankrupt them. Then as a small business owner, I'd ask that they see consulting assistance. Their business model may be a problem. Western Springs is ranked 99 in a recent study of the most affluent communities in the country. LaGrange is also affluent. Hinsdale, there goes to say. When I went out for a drink last week and paid $10.50 for a mixed drink, you mean to tell me that people wouldn't pay $11.50 for the same, especially if they knew that the servers that were serving them could take time off and were getting a wage that were more fair? This is not a zero-sum game. I'm not going to travel to Hinsdale just because I'm paying 50 cents less per drink or $2 less per meal when the average dinner cost exceeds $125. Besides doing what is ethically and morally correct, you as elected officials have a duty to represent the electorate, unless, as we see throughout this state, county decisions are being made only representing lobbyists and special interests. I firmly believe in people who run businesses' ability to provide a mutual beneficial arrangement, but I like to stress that businesses serve the community. The community does not serve the businesses, and the community supports those businesses that support the whole community. I understand the Business Association's quandary, but we should not always be about the lowest cost possible. My question is this: will you support the people who provide the work, or will you take this away as well as your village's high majority of support? Will you listen to the people to do the right thing and take no action tonight that will not only negatively impact your workers here, but your community? I know I, for one, with other area residents, will not support businesses or communities that do not support the people who work to make your village great. And I think people who live here should really question why this board would go against the majority who voted for actions to raise the wage and provide a method for sick leave. I respectfully request that you do as LaGrange and not opt out. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Longino. Yes, sir. It's getting to be a bit repetitious here now. We're hearing the same thing, so do you have something in addition to? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Abdul Nasser Rashid. I'm here on behalf of... I'm sorry. Is this better? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Good evening. My name is Abdul Nasser Rashid. I'm here on behalf of Cook County Clerk David Orr to urge you to not opt out of the minimum wage and earned sick leave ordinances. The clerk's office can affirm that Western Springs voters overwhelmingly support these policies. Well over 60% support a minimum wage increase, and nearly 70% support the earned sick leave ordinance. Increasing the minimum wage is good for workers and it's good for business. Others have spoken to this. I'll just note that many studies have shown that increasing the minimum wage does not result in job losses, as some opponents would argue. One study showed that 7 decades of historical data found no correlation between minimum wage increases and employment levels. And it goes on to state that predictions of job losses are rooted in ideology, not in evidence. The paid sick leave ordinance allows full-time workers to earn up to 5 paid sick days per year, and it allows part-time workers to earn 1 hour for every 40 that they work. When I get sick, or my wife gets sick, or my daughter gets sick, I get to take a paid sick day off and get healthy and come back to work and be productive. The reality is that we all get sick, whether we're workers, managers, or CEOs, and workers shouldn't have to decide between earning a day's salary and staying home and potentially risking their jobs or taking care of their health. The ordinance goes a long way to reducing emergency room visits, and it protects the health of coworkers and of customers. So I urge you on behalf of Clerk Orr not to opt out of these ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. It's the biggest challenge, I think.
Yes. I'm not a great public speaker, so bear with me. My name is Stephanie Holt. I've lived in Springdale for 18 years. And just within the last few years, I was forced to take a minimum wage job because my own self-employment fell off a bit. I'm a single parent. I worked a minimum wage job for 3 years. And I learned then that it was a whole lot harder than being self-employed. I could never take a sick day. I got no benefits. I had no workers' comp or anything like that if I got hurt on the job. And I strongly support the raise in the minimum wage. I think it's long overdue. And it's not just teenagers making mad money. It's people like me. It's seniors. It's people who are supplementing inadequate income. So please just let this go through and don't mess with it, because it's very important to our community. And it will make for a better and more healthy community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Holt.
Hi, my name is Siobhan Green, and I live in LaGrange. I live in LaGrange and I grew up in LaGrange, and I'm very proud that our elected officials listened to the voters who overwhelmingly voted in favor of the referendum that has given more support to our financially vulnerable citizens. And I'm proud that our LaGrange government listened. I understand that Western Springs business owning community has asked you to opt out of this referendum, creating an ordinance that would strip local workers of these protections. That happened in LaGrange too. And I understand that Western Springs business owners are concerned and that some of them have asked you to create these ordinances. That happened in LaGrange too. And I know many of you may know these business owners personally, and that sometimes it's hard to say no to our friends. And that happened in LaGrange too. But that happens everywhere. It happens to all of us because it's human. But there's data, and we need to listen to that too. The data shows that raising minimum wage and creating paid sick days does not hurt small businesses in the ways that we fear. The data shows that most small business owners, when surveyed, will support these measures. And when you were not elected to represent the businesses, but the citizens, and the citizens of Western Springs voted by over 60% to create these protections. I urge you to listen to these numbers, and I urge you to listen to your voters. LaGrange did, and I'm proud. And I'm proud to shop there. I'm very proud to spend my money in that community. Western Springs is one of the most affluent communities in the state of Illinois. The reputation of the community of Western Springs is built in part on that affluence. If you opt out of the minimum wage raise referendum and the paid sick days protections, what new reputation do you create? You cannot be known as a government that is responsive to your citizens and all its residents and the way that they vote. An affluent community who makes a choice to act against their minimum wage workers will earn a poor reputation. They live in the light or the shadow of your choices, all citizens of Western Springs. I just ask you to keep that in mind.
Thank you, Mrs. Green.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name is Mark Novotny. I'm a resident of nearby Countryside. I grew up here, LT alum, and I worked in Western Springs while I was saving money for college. And at that time, gas was around $1. It is no longer $1. What we've seen is that the minimum wage hasn't kept up with cost of living, and I was saving for college. A lot of people save for college, but also 81% of minimum wage earners are 21 and older. So they are trying to support their families, or they may even be saving for their children's college sometime in the future to better their station. I think a lot of these communities are smaller, 2-3 minutes down the road. I'm in Western Springs. I bank in Western Springs. I do my grocery shopping there. I like to know that workers are getting a fair wage, and also, if it's in between going to the Marianos in Western Springs or the Marianos in Westchester, it's nice to know that one of those workers is actually getting sick days off, So, I think it's just beneficial to the communities, and it seems that as a place as affluent as Western Springs, it'd be nice to not have that be a black hole while all the other surrounding communities like Countryside and LaGrange are paying their workers a fair wage and providing them with sick days. And I think it's enough to allow this to go through and not take it away, because it's actively taking it away, and not pushing it or kicking the can down the road, because I think benefits deferred are benefits denied. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Novotny. Yes, ma'am.
That on? I think, okay. Hello. My name is Mary Kay Mulvaney. I'm a village resident for 34 years. And I have to admit that I have rarely attended these meetings. Most of the time, because this village is run so well, admittedly, I don't feel the need to come. And I thank all of you and your predecessors for that reality. I just want to make a very short statement on behalf of myself and many of my friends. It comes down to me, it is just incredulous to believe that in this very privileged community that we share, with a median income of over $140,000, we are even debating the idea that the people that serve us that might potentially make $20,000 something eventually, that this is an issue. It really is disturbing to me ethically. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Milburn. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Tanya Trish Dogwood, and I am counsel with the Illinois Retail Merchants Association. I'm here on behalf of our members that are located in Western Springs. I just wanted to give maybe a different perspective on what you've been hearing so far. You're charged with a decision to make this evening, and that decision isn't about whether or not paid sick leave is good or bad. It's not whether or not the minimum wage should increase or not. The decision you're making is who should decide. Should it be the Cook County Board, the same board who has an opinion from their own state's attorney that says that they don't even have the authority to pass the laws that they passed, both the minimum wage and the paid sick leave? Or should it be dealt with in Springfield in the General Assembly, where for a long time labor regulations of private employers have been addressed? To that end, there are bills to increase the minimum wage, one in the House, one in the Senate. There are bills to enact paid sick leave, one in the House, one in the Senate. And that policy discussion is going on exactly where we believe it should be, in Springfield, with your legislators. So, you know, there's some representatives here from President Preckwinkle's office, someone from the Economic Development Board, and I thought that was interesting because this is the same president who said she was going to roll back the sales tax, which she did, and then she increased the sales tax. Not so great for economic development. And a lot of other decisions that have been made that have not been keeping small businesses in mind. For example, we tried to negotiate this ordinance in the Cook County Board. I was a part of a team of people who tried to do that. And they came back with, you know, we gave them many, many suggestions about how to make it more fair to business owners. They came back with 0 changes, not one. We don't tend to think that that's reasonable. We don't tend to think that that shows that you're looking out for the small business owners. And so I wish I brought it here with me, but they just issued the rules on paid sick leave. They're 50 pages long. How is a small business owner supposed to, number one, understand that? And I think it also shows that they don't have, they're not taking into account what small business owners have to go through in order to make payroll every week and to keep those doors open in a very uncertain economy. But I represent people who have to make those decisions every day. I was on the task force in the city of Chicago that debated these issues. And after they passed the increase in the minimum wage, we sat down and we talked with small business owners and asked them, you know, if you had to, what happened after you implemented the minimum wage? And they all told us very similar stories. Number one, they raised prices. Number two, they cut back on employee hours. So employees were making more per hour, but they were working less hours. There was no net gain. And that's what happens when you pass ordinances without accounting for how the small business owner is going to pay for it. And so that's the thing. Those are the policy decisions that have been made and have been put in your lap. But what we're saying here is those policy decisions should be debated in Springfield, where they're being debated right now. So this village board just needs to answer one question. Should you allow the Cook County Board to make those decisions for everyone, or should it be made at the state? And we agree that it should be. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
It's on, it'll just take a second.
My name is Mike O'Brien. I'm the current president of the Western Springs Business Association. I think I've met most of you, and you should have in your possession our position paper on the issue of opting out. Our position is that we should opt out, and we feel very strongly about. Sure.
So you can.
Our position is that we would like to see the village opt out. There are currently, I think, about 9 communities that have opted out. And as the lady before me said, what we're going to end up with is a patchwork of minimum wage laws across the state of Illinois. I operate a business and I cross several counties, and I don't relish the idea of having to look up what I'm going to have to comply with depending upon what county my employees happen to be serving customers in. And that's something that should be left up to the states. So the opt-out for us is to buy time for Springfield. I think she said it very well, is by the end of the year, we'll know something. We'll know whether or not they pass it or not. But I would like to share with you, rather than speak further, is I'm going to bring up somebody from our business community, one of the longest-standing businesses in Western Springs, Penny Kirschbaum from Kirschbaum's Bakery, just so that you have a context of what the business owner's mind, what they have to deal with in trying to grapple with this and comply with the regulation. That's, I think, something that was missed in a lot of the discussions we've had so far.
Thank you, Mike. Hi, I'm Penny Kirschbaum. I've been in Western Springs. Closer, thank you. Our business has been in Western Springs since 1953. We've been here a very, very long time. We take a lot of pride in hiring many students. I have people come in from 25 years ago, bring their children in and say, this was my first job. And I'm proud to say it was a good job. They learned a lot, they grew from it, and they're continuing to be proud that they worked at Kirschbaum's Bakery. I have a total of 32 employees. 8 of them are high school students who make minimum wage. Very first job, half of them don't know how to make change. They don't know how to speak to customers. They don't know how to sweep the floor. They have to be taught everything. But that's what you do when you learn to get into the workforce. You have to be taught so that you can increase and make better. I also have 11 college students that work for me, and they make $9 an hour. Now, the rest of my employees all make over $10, over $15 an hour. But my early stage workers do make minimum wage, and it is a starting point for them. The changes that are outlined in this are going to have a big impact on me. To change from $8.25 to $13 an hour will make me reevaluate. Do I want to take that time in training this young child on how to be a worker? I don't know. It may make me change my hiring practices to go to an adult already qualified to do the skills. Now, I don't know, maybe not everybody sees it from my point of view, but you do have to start somewhere. The workforce, you just don't jump in with 2 feet and start at the top. My business and a lot of the businesses in town here start with the young children, and those are the ones who are making the minimum wage. I have bakers that make $23, $24, $25 an hour. They're definitely not making minimum wage. 3 weeks paid vacation, sick pay, they get all of the benefits already. Those are the people that are supporting their families, not the minimum wage workers. They're learning how to become workers. And so I vote to opt out for now until the state decides what we should do.
Thank you, Mrs. Kirschbaum.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Scott Tusk, and the only comment I'll add to the conversation about minimum wage is that I've been a Western Springs resident long enough that I worked at Kirschbaum's, the Village Hardware, and Donna's, and the minimum wage was about $2.10. So,
You look well preserved for that.
I think it was $2.10 or $2.20. I came here to talk to you about another item on your agenda, which is the sidewalk program. I live on a block where a home was built directly to the north of me and directly to the south of me where they added sidewalk. And after living in this house for 11 years, all of a sudden there's people walking across our lawn. As you know, you have a block now with one sidewalk missing. So I talked to Marty and Marty and, whoops, sorry. So I started talking to Marty and Matt and Jeff Ziegler. Sorry, Marty and Matt and Jeff Ziegler about what to do about this. And
You got the right people, yeah.
yeah, and in every case they were very helpful, and they said, "Let's see what we could do to help you, Scott." And the reason I'm here tonight is that as you're considering this issue, I want to flip that completely on its head, because whenever they told me that, I was appreciative of them trying to help me, but I didn't want a sidewalk. I kind of don't want a sidewalk now, but a house north of me and a house south of me have thrust upon me the need for a sidewalk. And whenever they said, let's see if we could help you, I kept saying to myself, it really shouldn't be that. I consider that the first $100 I pay for this new sidewalk is a donation to the Village of Western Springs to help out the community. It'll help out the school children around me that we shoveled the island across from us so that the kids can walk on a sidewalk. I've done that for 11 years before we had a sidewalk, things like that. And so I just want you, as you consider this, to think about, it's not the village helping out the resident to add this sidewalk. It's not the resident helping. It's us helping out the village, which is a village responsibility to fix this problem that was thrust upon us.
Okay, I know that that is under discussion at the Properties and Rec Committee, and I don't know that any decisions have been made.
Yeah.
Public
Yeah,
Works,
I just knew that it was going to be discussed. I thought it was on the agenda for tonight, and I just wanted to frame
It is.
frame
And I
things,
think
that's
we're
all.
going to hear a report from Trustee Allen on that.
Yeah.
But thank you for your comments, and you know, we'll take them.
If you wanted me to stick around, I would, if you thought it was helpful.
You're welcome to. Yeah,
Okay.
certainly.
It depends on how many more minimum wage speeches there are.
Well, anything further? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Mary Ann Quinlan. I'm a 28-year resident of Western Springs. I want to remind, just because you've heard two different sides of this, that more than 80% of minimum wage workers are over 21 years old. There are 7 states in the United States that have alternative minimum wages, where they pay a lower wage to workers of various types, some of which are lower. Feel free to make up our own minimum wage if you feel strongly that you need that access point. But that is not the choice of most of the other states. If you vote today against the Cook County ordinance, you will be taking away rights that workers have. And in terms of expecting that Springfield is going to handle this for us, yes, we are in a tremendous bind here in Illinois, but we're not the only state in which municipalities have chosen to get ahead of their state, and these other municipalities have been happy with their decision to move forward with minimum wage. So you're not acting first, you're not acting alone to go along with what my county, what our county has chosen to do for its workers. And I just want to remind you that we're here not because the county said something should happen. We're here because, and we're fortunate to have had a couple of referenda that have told us exactly what the Village of Western Springs voters feel. They are informed voters, they care, and they want to do their part. So they have voted to support both of the concepts behind these ordinances. I noticed that we aren't getting any questions on any of our points. Maybe that's why we keep talking, because we are we're not sure until you vote. We are not going to know how you feel, and that's just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Quinn. Anything further? Okay.
Hi, I'm Ben Stewart. Lived in Western Springs for about 9 years, raised 2 kids in the public schools, and we love it here. which is also why I'm a little surprised and saddened that this appeared on your agenda tonight. I don't know how it got on the agenda. What I imagine to be kind of the abandonment of people who have just gained new protections and new opportunities. So I just want to ask a few questions and make a couple of points. You've heard it already. Your community, your voters, the people who put you here support this. So we're just asking you to not to change, not to go against the will of the people who put you in this office. The majority of the people here in Western Springs support this. My wife directs a unit of the hospital at Rush, and she can't be here tonight 'cause she's with our kids at soccer practice, and she said we would be crazy to force restaurant workers to choose between a paycheck and coming to work sick. If you want to take care of public health, give your workers basic sick day protection. And then if those kind of practical things don't convince you, I hope that you would just go inside of yourself to think a little bit empathically. What would you feel like in a place where you were dependent on minimum wage in a village this wealthy, and the village reduced your minimum wage, that minimal payment? They took it away from you, or they forced you to choose between your paycheck and coming to work sick. And then lastly, I think about the whole diverse Cook County. Just cast your mind over all our skyscrapers, all the way to the lake, all across the whole county. And then picture us here in Western Springs, this little wealthy place, and that we, while the rest of the county, including some really tough places, have decided to stand with their most vulnerable members, that we, this wealthy, would turn our backs on them and take away those protections. That would make me so ashamed. I hope you'll listen to the voice of the voters and stand with our most vulnerable people who are part of this community.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Okay, anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Adam Cater. I'm a resident of Brookfield. I'm also the director of the Worker Center for Rise Chicago. I'm introducing myself as one of the advocates that pushed for the countywide paid sick days ordinance, and wanted to give you a countywide perspective. We heard from one of the members of our opposition who said that nearly 9, I think he said, there's actually been more villages that have opted out already. I want to remind you that there are over 130 municipalities in the county, and while our business friends say they do not want a patchwork, it is precisely a patchwork that they are creating by trying to opt out village by village. The vast majority of municipalities will not opt out of this ordinance. It takes effect July 1st, and yet we have a few, and I think somebody described it as would be like a black mark, a pockmark, that would be on Western Springs if you were one of the few, perhaps one of the dozen, that decided to opt out of this. So I want to offer that perspective that many of you, or we've heard tonight, people don't like the idea of the county determining this, and to say, well, you know, Springfield should simply take care of it. And I must remind you that that is a disingenuous statement to make, knowing that some of the very same groups that are saying, let's do it in Springfield, are trying to block the legislation that is currently in Springfield. So our friend that we heard from Irma, who I am fond of, my organization has served with her on the task force, and I must disagree with her because I know her organization is actively lobbying against this passing at the state level. So I just want to give you that perspective that this truly is that you should uphold the county decision. This is not a government body intruding on your autonomy. This is in fact the will of the people of the county. And we could not agree more. This should be at Springfield. This should be at the federal level. But simply making that statement does not give you grounds to opt out. So I want to just call us back to reality that if we are setting a record for not having a budget for 2.5 years, certainly we're not going to be introducing new workplace policies. In fact, we all know that the current administration is trying to take away workers' comp. So I think that, you know, Western Springs has an opportunity this evening. I hope that they take in mind the gravity of this decision and also consider what message this will send to surrounding communities who are emphatically not opting out. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move into our committee reports, I think that the proposition and, opting out, it's on the omnibus. Obviously, that's not going to stay on the omnibus. We'll take that off and have a discussion. And we've had the benefit of the fine comments that you folks have educated us with. And believe me, we've got plenty of emails and letters and everything else. So I think we have the issues. And the board will discuss this at the time we come to vote on it. But we will have the benefit of the comments that were made here on both sides of the issue, and I thank you for those. Moving on, we'll hear our committee reports. We'll start with Public Works and Water. Trustee Allen.
Thank you, President Rodiger. The first item is the 2006 sidewalk policy amendment. We heard from Mr. Tosk, a resident on the 4300 block of Hampton. There's some information in your packet kind of describing the situation. We did talk about it at our committee meeting. And essentially what kind of the principle we laid out with it is that we thought the residents' comment made sense in a big picture way of getting the village to support in some manner installation of a sidewalk. However, we didn't want to go to a situation where it would change our budget as a village. And so we were trying to be very sensitive of how we balance a situation where a homeowner that builds a house is forced to pay 100% and do it all independently versus a situation where an existing homeowner can do it with a 70-30 split with the homeowner paying 70 and the village paying 30. We did like the concept of using the village vendor, so it would be a uniform situation and potentially at a lower cost than doing it sort of one at a time. So how we left it at the committee level, and if Director Supert was able to get any updates, is what we wanted to do is to see if we could tweak the percentages a little bit on the 70-30 and see what sort of impact it would have on our overall budget using sort of an average of the number of tear downs that occur over a year. So that was kind of the big picture. I don't know if Director Supert has anything to add, but I think the message we wanted to send to the board is we heard from the resident. We did receive a copy of his letter, and we wanted to discuss it some more at the committee level. So we do not have a recommendation at this point. Matt, did you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, just a little bit. I think your summary was very succinct on kind of overall what we were doing. I think the idea is to get some direction from the board and then bring it back to the committee to work out the details of the language, what the guidelines would be.
Is there any feedback maybe from the board? I think that's a fair statement.
As I understand it, I mean, everybody that has a sidewalk now actually paid for the sidewalk in front of their house. I mean, whether from a special assessment or when they purchased the original builder of their house.
That's correct.
Were required to do that. We have instituted a program to assist homeowners that wanted to install sidewalks. I believe it's 80-20 at this point, right? And 80% being
70-30.
70-30. Okay, being paid by 70% being paid by the homeowner, 30% by the village. The thinking and the participation by the village was that that was the public benefit that was achieved, and it was a figure that was arrived at. I don't know if it was arbitrary but it seemed
Well,
like
it's pretty historical. I mean, you go back to the 100 or 220 special assessments. Pretty much 70-30 was the split on sidewalks, going back 100 and some years.
Okay, and we've got the situation now where you've had 2 tear downs. We require a person who constructs a new home to install a sidewalk in front of the house. So you got 2, and in the case of Mr. Tosk, he's in the middle.
That's right.
Now, he doesn't have to put a sidewalk in, probably doesn't want to put a sidewalk in, but he's got people actually using his front lawn as a sidewalk. Well, it's
He's
on the
using
right
the
of way.
parkway,
The
yes.
parkway, it's the right of way of the village.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, well, I think, whatever the committee's gonna come up with, we'll consider it at that point, but,
Well, I think the committee's looking for direction from the board. Is that what
Yeah,
I'm
just some
hearing?
input, like, do you like the concept of the village stepping in the situation like that and providing, the contractor some sort of cost sharing? Do you like the idea of it being sort of budget, trying to figure out a way if we can tweak this 70-30 to make it sort of more budget neutral? That sort of concept.
Do we have an overarching goal of eventually having sidewalks throughout the village?
The board has never said that, and maybe they should have 40 years ago. The first meeting I walked into 39 years ago, they were talking about what the village's sidewalk policy ought to be.
We're
And
still talking about
We're
it.
still talking about it.
But to clarify, is this on? To clarify, if a resident wants to install a sidewalk, in the case of Mr. Talk, that is a new sidewalk, and he would be responsible for 100% of the costs, correct? As
No, I
No,
don't believe
no.
so. We've changed it so many times.
Yeah, I thought.
It's
that's-
70% of the cost, right?
so the only person who pays 100% of the cost of installing a new sidewalk is a brand-new construction home.
Is the builder, yes.
Yeah, well, it sounds like in addition
when he,
as
and he
well.
passes that through to the purchaser of the
homeowner,
home.
yeah,
Right.
Right.
yeah.
You're proposing 70-30 now.
So that was when we discussed this at the committee, that's what I said. I said, well, so the homeowner who's building a new house has to pay 100% of the cost of the sidewalk, but anybody else who puts in a sidewalk is getting 30% of it paid for by the village. Am I correct in my understanding of that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so.
Well, there's
therefore
actually just one clarification in the sense that the sidewalk policy as it stands today only applies to an SSA area, a special service area, for larger installations. We currently don't have any sort of cost split for just a one-off installation for any existing homes.
Okay.
So that goes back to the situation where a whole block has to vote, and it's a 51%.
Yeah, the current policy is designed to address those areas where you have several along a block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, that don't have sidewalk in them. The policy just doesn't have language in it currently to address these single homes that exist in between existing sidewalk from the tear downs or other areas.
Well, it used to, but anyway, that's another story.
So in terms of some feedback, I think the idea of the village helping out, and the idea of assisting with the contractor and those things are good ideas. I think that also it's still, in like Mr. Toss' situation, he still has the option of not putting a sidewalk.
Correct.
We're not forcing him to get a sidewalk. So the idea is if he wants to move forward, we can help him out, we can get a connected sidewalk. I think that's a fair approach.
I agree with that. I think the 30-70 split in that particular situation, but for those sidewalks having gone in, he would have left the parkway the way it was, but now it's become, in essence, a sidewalk simply because of those two. So I can see the advantage in providing an incentive to homeowners that are in that situation.
Well, thank you. But I guess I was going also, if the person building a new home, are you
No,
content with
no,
leaving
no.
it at 100%?
100%,
Because
absolutely.
they're
Yeah. I mean,
they're making their own choice to
that's
do
a
that.
smaller.
No, they're
Well,
not. They have to put a sidewalk in. They're not making.
They're making the choice to build a house.
Okay.
They're being forced to put a sidewalk in.
Right.
But it's also typically part of a larger project, and they're getting
Exactly.
a driveway poured, steps and other things too, so I don't see that as big of a burden, and I don't see.
Not necessarily from a burden, it's more from a uniformity where it's the same contractor, it's the same engineer that will get the same standard quality of a sidewalk versus, if we're 50 teardowns a year in the village, we may have a dozen different contractors.
But
So
in-
that was sort of the comment.
But in terms of the quality of the job, and a new construction would have to follow through the
Right.
building inspection, so
Okay.
there would be that control. That's my view on it, at least.
The only thing I'd suggest, Trustee Allen, when you adopt your policy is to take a look at corner houses. This is where it's gotten hung up before, because you not only have, they don't have sidewalk, you not only don't have the sidewalk in front, but you have 187 to 230 feet on the side yard that gets to be a different kind of issue if you're really building a system.
Okay. Thank you all very much for that. Next item is the well number 3 update, and I'll start it, and Director Supert and Manager Higgins, feel free to jump in. As maybe not all of our residents know, we had an electrical issue at our well number 3 on Easter Sunday. Well number 3 is currently not operating. We're using well number 1 on a blended basis as a backup. We are starting to see elevated levels of iron and hardness in our water. We're trying to balance it through the water department as best as we can. What we're seeing is on weekends, higher demand of water, potentially people washing their cars or watering their lawns. And then this past weekend, we had a situation with 2 water main breaks, so that upped the usage of the well number 3. At the commission level and the committee level, we are still looking at our longer-term solution, which would be either a well number 1, having it be pre-treated before it goes into the system, which would improve the quality of the water, or making a larger investment in getting a brand-new deep well, which would be well number 5, which would be a longer-term type solution. We did talk also about watering restrictions, and I don't know if you guys would like to kind of give an update on sort of where our thinking is and sort of the timing of the installation of the new motor to go into well number 3 and when that might be ready and operable safely.
I think we're just in a holding pattern, waiting to see what the weather looks like and the reinstallation schedule, which we expect tomorrow.
Probably Wednesday.
Wednesday.
They pulled the motor, completed that by last Friday. They began the inspections on the work this weekend. Probably have another day or 2 of that. There's also going to be some minor work on some of the pipe and the shaft that came up out of the ground. So we're anticipating them to be back on site Wednesday to begin some of the reinstallation work.
The weather's been pretty favorable for not a lot of sprinkling, so we're just kind of looking ahead a few days. And then the question is what is the watering restriction that we would put in place, which hasn't really been determined yet. Hopefully we can get the well down by the end of next week and electrically operable, and this won't be an issue, but we'll see.
So we're actually on the omnibus formalizing a vote we took 2 weeks ago that gave you, Manager Higgins, the authority.
Yeah, so
to
we
declare
haven't done
that.
anything yet. Correct.
Okay, so do you need any feedback from us because on what type of water restrictions you might want if the situation warrants it, or because
Well, one of my concerns is the implementation of a watering restriction can actually create more watering. You start telling people they can't do something on opposite days, and therefore they've got to do it on the other day. And right now we have had very little watering. If you drive around, well, it's true. I mean, it's just kind of a human thing. And we've had very little watering. I mean, I've been out and about, and I think Matt and the staff has as well. And the use we've got on weekends, I think, is primarily laundry and just more people home. And that's not going to change with the watering restriction in terms of yards. So.
Yeah, overall, we're in pretty good shape in terms of our capacity with what we're doing with well number 4 and number 1. We've had to do some minor supplementation with well number 1. The Sundays particularly are a little bit higher demand where we've had to go a little bit higher. This weekend in particular, we've been doing very well. We're able to recover fully at night when we run the wells. This weekend, because we had those 2 main breaks on Saturday and Sunday, just took more water out of the system than we normally would. So we are a little bit higher on those hardness out of Sunday. We're anticipating those to go back down as that water kind of moves through the distribution system over the next 24 to 48 hours.
Question on the pump. Are you evaluating the pump that's come out of well 3? We have a backup pump. I thought we were going to put that in.
That's correct. So we are actually in the process of putting the new one. That
Okay,
new one will
so-
go in. We're doing a full inspection on the one that came out as part of that process. There's also some pipe that we're going to have to do some inspection on as well.
Yeah, there's a brand new pump that's
Yeah,
going in
that's what I
after
thought we
many,
were gonna
many
do.
years.
Okay.
was there any other comments on well number 3?
Thank you, that's good.
Okay, and then in the interest of brevity, the capital project summary report is in your packet. I thought Director Supert and the team did a nice job. The project seemed to be on track and going well. So if there aren't any questions, that'll conclude my report.
Thank you, Trustee Allen. Next, Properties and Recreation, Trustee Gallagher.
Thank you, President Rodiger. The first item On my agenda for tonight is a capital project update on the East Train Platform Phase 2 design and construction. The ADA compliant plans have been submitted to BNSF and Metra. Once those two entities sign off on them, the plans will go to the ICC for approval, but we are still optimistic that the project will begin in the first part of June. With regard to the Bemis Woods bike path, staff is urging IDOT to locate and approve the plans. Oh? Great.
This past Friday.
And
So
they've
we'll be
been
moving forward.
approved?
Yes, we both, it's the joint.
Wow, I didn't know that either. That's great.
Yes, I got them, so it's the
Working
joint
on that
engineering
one.
agreement with James J. Bennis and Associates.
So now it's back to Bennis for project development.
So basically, they've been released as part of the Phase 1 engineering to do the work,
Okay.
which now means we can basically open up our conversations back with Cook County Highway Department, the Forest Preserve District, and IDOT to kind of get that conversation and planning going with that configuration again.
Thank you.
Can we just emphasize that that's Bemis Woods bike path?
It's not the Flat Creek Greenway. Item number 2, the rec center HVAC project bid results came in. Unfortunately, the lowest bid was still higher than what we projected. But all the bids, there were 5 bids, they all came in over, and the lowest qualified bidder was Amber Mechanical Contractors, Inc., in the amount of $232,000. The amount budgeted was $225,000, so staff still recommends, and the committee agrees, that we go ahead with this project. It's a large project, completely revamping the HVAC system at the rec center. That system has been there 20-plus years. It's at its end of life, and it's failing. So it needs to be done. And the architect that was hired in consultation recommended we go ahead with Amber Mechanical. Staff agreed, and the committee agrees as well. So we recommend that goes on the omnibus for May 22nd.
Okay, we'll put that on the omnibus for the 22nd.
Thank you. Item number 3 is the 5142 lawn right-of-way sale. The owner to the north of the right-of-way is requesting to purchase 15 feet of the right-of-way. There are no encumbrances on that right-of-way, and there's no issues with the sale. She's requesting that to improve landscaping and also driveway access. So if there's no dispute, we'll put that on the May 22 schedule for a public hearing. Okay. Item number 4 is the 4947 Woodland right-of-way sale. The subject property is part of the public public hearing tonight. The owners of the property to the north of the right-of-way are requesting to purchase 24 of the 30 feet available. The property owners to the south bought 30 feet of available 33 in 2003 of the right-of-way. The neighbors in this most recent right-of-way request could not agree on the sidewalk placement, the driveway placement, as well as other issues, and they both attended our most recent meeting at the Properties and Rec Committee last week. Staff worked very hard to try to find solutions to accommodate both parties, but often when you try to please everyone, no one is actually happy. And that was the case there until one of the parties suggested another alternative, which is to shift the sidewalk from the midpoint between the rights-of-way 3 feet to the south, and then widen the driveway the amount of feet necessary to comply with our code for driveways. So both parties agreed to that tentatively, and I believe Attorney Jurusik is working on the contracts for the parties. Yeah. And so,
So
with
we're
that in
going to
mind,
act on that this evening?
we'll act on that this evening. It's
On the
just an
right-of-way
update.
sale.
Excuse me, that's to the north, correct?
That's to the north.
Okay, I thought I heard you say south.
The sidewalk will be placed 3 feet to the south of the midline up between the right-of-way.
To the north.
Yeah.
No, so, yeah, so, the sidewalk will be placed north of the midline. It would be just south of where the edge of the property line is that, the Zeeks are purchasing. A little bit confusion on that, yeah.
You're both saying the same thing.
Yes.
You're welcome. Any other questions on that?
Okay, we'll take action on that this evening.
Thank you. And then I just had an update on the Flat Creek Greenway. At our April meeting, the committee decided to shelve that project for at least 6 months or until a new grant application is available. Staff believes that will be 2 to 3 years from the date of the last grant window. And the committee recommends at that time that the new committee first step should be to determine community interest in the project before we go further. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Gallagher. Next, General Government, Trustee Glowiak.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first item is the French Market amendment. The French Market was not as successful as it's been, and it's been on Thursdays, and we think changing it to Sundays might help. So we've agreed, and Benzedin has agreed to Sunday Market Day as opposed to the Thursday day, and they have some new vendors and other vendors that they think, they have 2 farmers, and they have other people, that a bakery and a crate maker, that they think will be more interesting for the residents. We're hoping it will be more successful, and we're going to give it a try. And we're not setting up or tearing down. They will be doing that for us, so the village will have no involvement in that. Any questions? St. John of the Cross special event liquor and raffle license request. We had a brief meeting right before this meeting. The Family Fest is June 22nd to the 25th. Dave Bennett is here representing St. John's, and it's going to be similar to the last 6 years with the addition of a food truck. So this year they're going to have that and some other, they're changing the kind of location of the tents and hoping to get some more people to be interested in coming out. So that is on tonight, the liquor and raffle license request for St. John of the Cross.
Okay, we'll take action on that in the omnibus.
Okay. My agenda item C, minimum wage and sick leave opt-out ordinance. Our general government committee met, and we did not agree necessarily on whether to opt out or not, and I think that's why that continues to be on our agenda, and we're talking about it again. President-elect Gallagher was for opting out. I was against opting out. I've had quite a few emails, calls. My pastor called and said he thinks that it's a bad idea to opt out, that people in his congregation are thinking that they'll just go to other places like LaGrange. So I'm in favor of not opting out. Opting out sounds like a nice word for we're taking away people's minimum wage and sick pay. So that's my opinion. Trustee Gallagher was in agreement. So any other questions about this?
Well, we're going to take action on that as part of the this
Omnibus
evening's.
this
Well,
evening.
no, it's not going to be on the omnibus.
Well, it is now, but
Well,
I'm
yeah.
going to ask that it be removed.
Right, we'll take that off. Okay.
Okay. And finally, the raffle license request for the LTHS choir trip. They're going to Ireland, and they are having a raffle and would like to have us put that on the omnibus as well.
Is that this evening, or is that?
I believe that is this evening.
Okay, so that is the...
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's the usual grant of a license and a waiver of the bond, and, okay.
That is correct,
Okay,
yes.
fine.
Can I just ask though about the dates there? It says May 15th to November 16th. Is that
That's
when they're going to be selling
when they're
the
going to be
tickets
selling the
all the time?
tickets. Yeah.
Seems like a long
It's a
time.
it's a heck of a trip.
I was going to say, wait, I want to sign up for that trip. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they're going to Ireland.
I think that's 6 months' worth of selling raffle tickets.
Raffle tickets, okay.
Yes.
I think that's the way you interpret that, those dates.
Well, I did interpret it that way. I just was wondering, are they going to
Okay.
be selling them that long?
Thank
That
you.
concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Glowiak. Next, Public Health and Safety, Trustee Hansen.
Thank you, President Rodiger. The first item on the agenda is something that you will read later this evening, declaring May 21st through 27th as Emergency Medical Services Week proclamation. Of course, we are all appreciative of the fine work that the fire department and the EMTs do for us when we need them, and so we will recognize them. Second item on the agenda is the National Police Week proclamation, which is May 14th to May 20th. And President Rodiger will be reading both of those proclamations a little bit later. The next item is the Public Health and Safety Committee just met prior to this meeting, and we did recommend the purchase not to exceed $38,691.88, more or less, for the purchase of a replacement stretcher and loading system, a power stretcher and power loading system. And I'm going to let Chief Kenny explain this because it's fairly detailed.
Thank you. I will try and make it short and sweet. So currently, we have 2 ambulances. Frontline ambulance has a power stretcher, which means up and down mechanical device, which assists the medics and the EMTs on the lift. It does not have a power load system. The second ambulance has a manual stretcher, one that I kind of grew up with. The recommendation is to get a stretcher and a power load system with the long-term thought. Power stretcher in the front ambulance would go into the backup. The front ambulance then would have the power stretcher and the load device. We have budgeted to replace the secondary ambulance coming up if it's approved next year. That's now a requirement, state requirement, to have a power stretcher and a load system. If we do, if the board at that point puts that in the budget, what we would do is take that power stretcher that's in the backup ambulance, keep it, and we would only have to purchase a load system for that. So if I've totally complicated it at this point, trying to make that as simple as I can, we're looking to buy a power stretcher and a load system so that front ambulance has the best it can for service for the patients we have, as well as for the people who are doing all the lifting.
Chief Kenny, I have a question with regard to the grant. There's
Yes.
a reference there that
Thank
it'd be up to 15,000. That's not reflected in the 38.7.
No, it is
right?
not. Great
Okay,
question.
so that's something that we would apply for
We
after
have-
the fact?
Actually, we have already applied for that once, and it is pre-approved. Once the paperwork is sent in for the purchase, you get up to $15,000 reimbursed, or 1/3 of the cost. So we'll recognize probably $12,000 to $13,000 on a return.
Okay, so
That is not included in that net.
So it's a third with a max of 15,000?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay,
And,
we'll put that on the omnibus for the 22nd.
Thank you.
and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Hanson. Next, Finance, Trustee Horvath.
Thank you, President Rodiger. I have no report with regard to the firefighters' pension fund. I do have a report with regard to the police pension fund. Police pension board met on May 3rd, and 2 items. They reviewed the financial results for the first quarter of 2017, which were very positive, a 4.5% return in the first quarter, taking the total assets in the pension fund, police pension fund, from $13.8 million to $14.6 million, an increase in that 3-month period of $820,000. Very positive. In addition, that's the report on the financial side of it. In addition, ongoing right now are voting for new members on the police pension board, specifically the police members. There are 2 active members, as I've said in the past, and 1 retiree. So all of those positions are up for vote. The officers, active officers and retirees are currently voting. That will be finalized at the end of the month. And we may have a change in the makeup of the police pension board at that point. That concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Trustee Horvath. Next, Planning and Zoning, Trustee Timick.
Thank you, President Rodiger. Just one item tonight, and that's related to the forthcoming Starbucks at 47 and Gilbert, and we've previously discussed this as well. It's a temporary use permit. It's on the omnibus this evening. The plans and everything that we looked at, both at the committee and the board level, are relatively unchanged. One exception is that they've shrunk the spacing between the bollards for the outdoor dining fence, just to promote some additional safety for anybody out there. But other than that, it's essentially unchanged, and the recommendation is that we leave it on the omnibus and vote on it this evening.
Okay.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you. That brings us to the public hearing and the vacation of the north 24 feet by 187-foot portion of the 50th Street right-of-way located adjacent to and south of 4947 Woodland, Western Springs. The petitioners are Mr. and Mrs. David Zich. I'll entertain a motion to open a public hearing.
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor of opening the public hearing?
Aye.
Okay. Madam Clerk, will you acknowledge the publication of the notice for the public hearing?
Yes, sir, I will. And I will also ascertain that all of you are still here.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the board members on the proposition of vacating the right-of-way portion of 50th Street? And we've heard quite a bit about this through the committee reports, and Trustee Gallagher gave a good summary of what it was. We're just having the public hearing tonight. Action will be taken on this on the 22nd. This is just a public meeting. Okay, any questions or comments from the public and the press? Okay, hearing none. Any further discussion by the board? Okay, this will be put on then for action by the board on the 22nd of May. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing on the vacation of the 50th Street right-of-way.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the meeting's closed. We'll move to our omnibus. Should have this memorized by now. Illinois state statutes allow a municipality to collectively vote on a group of ordinances, resolutions, and other motions such as awards of contract, appointments, etc. This is known as an omnibus vote. All the items on the omnibus vote list have been previously discussed by the President and Board of Trustees on at least one occasion and often on several occasions. By placing them on the omnibus vote list, a single vote may be taken to approve them. A trustee may remove any item from the list and have it discussed and voted on separately prior to the omnibus vote. Is there any such request? Trustee
Yes.
Bowiak, number 9, I believe it is?
Agenda item number 9, please.
Okay, that'll be removed. Any other ones? Okay, if not, Trustee Glowiak?
President Roddiger, I move that the following ordinances as contained on the meeting agenda for May 8, 2017 be adopted and are approved under an omnibus vote. Agenda item number 8, ordinance number 17-2890, amending Title 4 Liquor Control, Chapter 1, Alcoholic Liquor, Chapter 4, Section 4-1-9, Classifications of Licenses, subsection 4-1-9I, Class I license, special events on property owned or leased by a not-for-profit organization of the Western Springs Village Code of 1997 is amended, relative to the number of Class I special events on property owned or leased by a not-for-profit organization, liquor licenses which can be issued in the Village of Western Springs, Cook County, Illinois. That would be for the St. John of the Cross Parish 2017 Family Festival event, scheduled for June 22 to 25, 2017, at the 5005 Wolf Road property, events liquor license. Agenda item number 10, resolution number 17-2386, approving the issuance of a raffle license under Title III Business Regulations, Chapter 12, Charitable Games, Raffles, Bingo, and Other Games of Chance Regulations, Section 3-12-3 Raffles of the Western Springs Municipal Code of 1997 as amended for applicant Lyons Township High School, LTHS School Choir for fundraising event for travel to Ireland with a license fee waiver and bond waiver. The drawing is on November 16, 2017. Agenda item number 11, resolution number 17-2387, approving the issuance of a raffle license under Title III Business Regulations, Chapter 12, Charitable Games, Raffles, Bingo, and Other Games of Chance Regulations, Section 3-12-3, Raffles of the Western Springs Municipal Code of 1997 as amended for applicant St. John of the Cross Parish for their 2017 Family Festival, June 22 to 25, 2017 event with a license fee waiver and bond waiver. Agenda item number 12, motion to authorize Village Manager Higgins to implement water use restrictions as necessary from May 8, 2017 to September 30, 2017 pursuant to Section 8-5-6 Water Supply of the Village Code. Agenda item number 13, motion to approve a license and indemnification agreement for temporary use permit to St. John of the Cross Parish, SJC, to allow SJC to operate a carnival from June 22 to June 25, 2017 as part of SJC's 2017 Family Festival. The carnival operator All-Star Amusement, Inc., doing business as North American Midway Entertainment. Agenda item number 14, motion to approve an amendment to second addendum to the market license agreement between Benzadune USA, Inc. and the Village of Western Springs, Cook County, Illinois, authorizing Benzadune USA, Inc. to operate the French Market on Sundays, May 14 to October 29, 2017. Agenda item number 15, motion to approve an outdoor cafe temporary use permit for Intrepid Western Springs LLC and its lessees, including Starbucks Coffee Company location, private property at 647th Street, northwest corner of 47th Street and Gilbert Avenue.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I will second.
Okay, as I mentioned in my opening comments, all of these items on this list have been discussed by this board on at least one occasion prior to tonight, and often on several occasions at a committee level by a committee of this board consisting of 2 trustees. After the discussions, it got to this point, we were going to take a vote. Any further discussion on any of the items on the omnibus list? Okay, if not, Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Certainly, sir. Trustee Horvath.
Aye.
Timmich.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye.
Gallagher.
Aye.
Lowiak.
Aye.
Hanson.
Aye.
And Roderick.
Aye. Okay, that passes. That brings us back to agenda item number 9. This comes out of general government. I think the proponent would be Trustee Gallagher. Would you make the motion, please?
Oh, certainly, President Radiger. Agenda item number 9, ordinance number 17-2891, amending Title III Business Regulations of the Western Springs Municipal Code with regard to conflicts with certain home rule county ordinances, Cook County minimum wage, and paid sick leave ordinances.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion among the board members pertaining to the proposition?
Yes, President Radiger. First, I'd like to clarify, because when you discussed 2 weeks ago about putting this on for a vote, it was with regard more to a timing issue than actually to the merits of the ordinance. Part of it was to give the state time to step up and do its job, but another part of it was that it has been the policy of boards not to saddle future boards with decisions, especially with long-ranging policy implications. And so I believe you said that gives the new board time to get seated, to look over the issue reasonably and have a due process with regard to looking at the pros and cons before they come to a decision. And that's why the ordinance itself states December 31st, 2017 as a date to review on the merits if the state has not passed anything.
That's correct. Yeah, my thought was that Trustee Gallagher was correct. I did not want to, since this is the last 2 weeks of this board, and this is an important decision, I did not want to saddle a new board with, something that we had done, give them a chance to consider this. And that was principally the reason, and we set the December 31st date in the hope that Springfield would do something. But if they don't do anything, if they do something, the whole thing is moot, and we don't need to worry about it. If they don't do anything, then the new board will have to consider this, and we'll hear these arguments again. And they're all good arguments on both sides of the issue. That's the reason why I asked it to be structured this way, so that we have an opportunity for a new board to consider this on its merits.
I have a couple questions for Attorney Jurusik on that point. If we opt out, or temporarily opt out now, can we still opt back in on December 31st?
Absolutely, yes. Or before.
Or before.
Yeah,
So we haven't taken away, the new board would have flexibility to decide what actions they would want to take.
Correct. Once the new board is seated, they can take this matter up and they can make a decision next month, 2 months from now, December 31st, sometime in 2018. In 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, yeah. They can do what they want.
And it would be as simple as another board vote. There's nothing special in terms of any sort of supermajority or anything required, or?
Correct, but what the ordinance before you now just creates a conflict with a Cook County Home Rule ordinance. You could take an ordinance, amend that, and remove that conflict, and then the Cook County minimum wage and sick benefits provisions would control private employers within the village of Western Springs.
And then the second question, are municipalities impacted by these wage and sick day ordinances? Or is it only private employers?
Only private employers. So this is and that's why I think somebody did make the point of why doesn't Western Springs just adopt its own minimum wage
ordinance. One of the public commenters made that point. And, you know, we do not have the legislative capacity to do that. You know, the villages.
Legislative authority.
Capacity or authority, yeah. We do not regulate private employers. We can create an ordinance that conflicts with a home rule community or a home rule entity like Cook County and opt out. But, you know, really, wages, sick benefits, you know, that's a uniform statewide issue, and that's why the Attorney General and the Cook County State's Attorney have issued the opinions they have that question what the Cook County Board has done, because these are issues of a statewide concern, and they've always been treated that way. This municipality and many municipalities that are non-home rule communities, we can't legislate like that. We don't have the legislative authority to set policy for, you know, for private, you know, employers like that. We can either opt out or choose to go with home rule entities like Cook County or, you know, state legislation.
I did have a question about the state's attorney and the attorney general and their opinion. So is there actively an investigation or anything being done that would potentially start legal action to overturn the Cook County?
No, it just opinions that went back and forth, and there is pending legislation, you know, at the state level. The House Bill 198 is in Rules Committee right now as of May 28th. It was sent to Rules Committee, so.
April 28th.
I'm sorry, April 28th, yeah, so. you
It's
know,
likely there will be.
Yeah, I think you got to wait till July 1.
July
when it
1,
becomes
and
effective, and then there will certainly be litigation concerning the effectiveness of that ordinance.
Does the state law, if passed, then supersede the Cook County ordinance? Or
Yeah.
does Cook County operate then independent of the state law?
State law takes precedent over Cook County, you know, ordinance. The challenge is at least House Bill 198, the proposed minimum wage state law doesn't climb faster than Cook County, but does by the end of a 5-year period. So you're still going to have this patchwork if the state moves forward with its House bill. It doesn't, it still creates an unevenness, an uneven playing field for both employees and employers because it doesn't get ahead of what Cook County has proposed in a number of, you know, early on. So you could still have the state adopting an enhanced minimum wage in Cook County's ordinance still being more generous than that, and so you can still have this, like I said, an uneven playing field between the counties and even among municipalities within Cook County on the minimum wage issue.
I have a couple questions. One is, this only applies to people 18 and older, isn't that correct? So if you're going to hire a high school kid at 16, you don't have to pay them these rates.
Minimum wage minimum wage is a basic minimum wage, is also a seasonal. Illinois has different other non-minimum wage or lower than minimum wage regulations that apply to like seasonal employees and restaurant workers. But what we're talking about is the minimum wage that's required to be paid, you know, by the state and by the county.
There is a youth minimum wage,
minimum wage.
Definitely,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, so that the issue of hiring a high school kid and having to pay them $13 an hour doesn't apply to this because these people are exempted.
Although
Number
my high
two-
schoolers were 18 in high school.
Number two, we might open ourselves up to litigation if somebody determines that they've been harmed as a result of us opting out. Is that true? As a village?
As a village, you by opting out, you could open the door to litigation.
And number three, whether it's the new board or the old board that sits up here to make this decision, the majority of Western Springs voters in the referendum already voted that they wanted us to raise the minimum wage.
I was one of those folks that voted yes for the referendum on both minimum wage and sick pay. But I am opposed to the Cook County. I said it needs to come from the state. If you don't come from the state, you're not going to have a universal minimum wage and sick pay throughout the state of Illinois. And I think employers that operate in multiple counties within the state of Illinois are going to be disadvantaged in that regard. So, yes, I did vote yes, but I'm not voting
Yeah, I,
for the opt-out.
and again, what, the only thing that's before us today is whether from today until December 31st.
Right.
You know, it's the timing of this, and it was not, it was designed not to prejudice a future board, and that was the thinking behind it. So, anything further? Any further discussion? Okay, if not, Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Can we just clarify exactly what we're voting for specifically?
Amending the business code to opt out. So an I would be an opt out. Right?
That is correct, and can I just for the benefit of the public, there is a whereas paragraph that let me read it very quickly so people can get a understanding that beyond just a temporary opt-out, there is a direction to staff in the elected officials. From the approval date, if this ordinance is approved, from the approval date till December 31st, 2017, the village president and village manager and their designees, they're directed to meet and communicate with and endeavor to work cooperatively with the village, local business association, municipal associations, including the Illinois Municipal League, West Central Municipal Conference, Mayor and Managers Conference, and the village's elected state representatives in an effort to encourage the Illinois General Assembly to adopt a uniform statewide minimum wage and sick leave law in lieu of a minimum wage and sick leave law adopted by the Cook County ordinances referenced herein. So it's not just a kind of an opt-out, it's, you know, what was discussed at your last meeting was an affirmative effort to try to support and get behind a statewide minimum wage and sick leave law that would be applied both to Western Springs and to, you know, municipalities throughout the state.
Well, and since we're about to vote, I think I'm the first one up. The last comment I just put in is that Trustee Horvath's comments echo very clearly, I think, where I'm at on this as well, too, to suggest that the county is any more efficient or functional than the state, in my opinion, and having them set this minimum wage is not anything I'm very happy or comfortable with. No offense to anybody from the county that's here tonight, but I'd prefer to see a statewide issue dealt with at the state level.
I'd like to point out that 3 times the county went to their legal representatives asking if they had the authority to do this, and 3 times the answer was no. So.
And lastly.
Well, that's for a judge to decide, you know.
Well, right, but
yeah.
I mean, they asked.
Yeah.
But I just want to clarify that LaGrange has voted to not opt out,
Right.
correct?
Right.
And so, my husband is a small business owner, so I'm quite conflicted. But my other question would be, if you are paying more, wouldn't a small business then, like, if a kid's gonna take a job in LaGrange or Western Springs, and Western Springs isn't paying what they can earn in LaGrange, aren't they gonna go to LaGrange then? So.
Maybe so, and then it's up to the businesses to figure that out.
Right, yeah. So,
Okay. Anything further? Okay, Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call, please?
Certainly, sir. Trustee Tuney.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye.
Gallagher.
Aye.
Lowiak.
Nay.
Hanson.
nay.
Horvath.
Aye.
Okay, it passes. And the village has opted out at least until December 31st or sooner. Okay, that brings us to, I'm going to read the proclamation that Trustee Hanson spoke of earlier. First, we'll do the Emergency Medical Services Week. And I'm going to ask the board, you've seen this in your packet. I hope nobody has any difficulty with me proclaiming the Emergency Medical Services Week or Police Week in Western Springs. Okay? The proclamation on the Emergency Medical Services Week reads, whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of emergency physicians, emergency nurses, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, administrators, and others. And whereas the members of the emergency medical service teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating, Emergency Medical Services Week. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Western Springs proclaims the week of May 21 to 27, 2017 as Emergency Medical Services Week. Further, we encourage the community to observe this week and commend the devotion, contributions, and services of members of the emergency medical service teams. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and seal of the Village of Western Springs this 8th day of May 2017. And I will sign this, and the clerk will attest to this proclamation. Secondly, is the National Police Week proclamation. To recognize Police Week 2017 and to honor the service and sacrifice of those law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. Whereas there are approximately 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Western Springs Police Department. Whereas there have been 15,548 assaults against law enforcement officers in 2015, resulting in approximately 14,453 injuries. Whereas since the first recorded death in 1791, more than 20,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and have been killed in the line of duty. Whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. Whereas 394 new names of fallen heroes are being added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial this spring, including 143 officers killed in 2016 and 251 officers killed in previous years. Whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in line of duty will be honored during the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund's 29th Candlelight Vigil on the evening of May 13, 2013. Whereas the Candlelight Vigil is part of the National Police Week, which takes place this year on May 14 to 20. Because May 14 falls on a Sunday, some events will take place before the official dates of Police Week 2017. Whereas May 15 is designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and their families, and U.S. flags should be flown at half-staff. Therefore, be it resolved that the Village of Western Springs formally designates May 14 to 20, 2017 as Police Week in Western Springs, and publicly salutes the service of law enforcement officers in our community and in communities across the nation. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and seal of the Village of Western Springs this 8th day of May 2017. Again, I will assign the original of this document, and the village clerk will attest to my signature. Moving on now to my report. The only thing I have this evening is the 4th of July in Hinsdale. Every year we are invited as members of the board to march in the Hinsdale Parade. I did it a couple of years, a long time ago, and it's a parade. It's nice of them to invite us, but on a better note, our fire department always has a couple of trucks that I believe that go into the parade. And Chief Kenny has been gracious in the past to invite trustees to ride on a fire truck, which is a lot more fun than marching in a parade, and bring, kids or grandkids if you're so inclined. So keep that in mind for the 4th of July. And if you want to march in the parade, maybe let Clerk Haskey know that you intend to do so that we can notify the people in Hinsdale. And if you want to ride on the truck, it's a lot more fun. Talk to Chief Kenny. Okay, and that's all I have. Village Manager Higgins, any report this evening?
Just one item, just a reminder that President Rodiger is also the president of our municipal conference, and he will be until Friday night, June 9th, which is their annual dinner at the Rosemont Convention Center. If any of you and your spouses would like to attend, please contact Clerk Haskey so we can make the appropriate arrangements. It's a nice evening. Gets over pretty early.
Does that apply to the retired trustees?
That applies to the retired trustees as well, including the retired president.
Thank you, Manager Higgins. Village Attorney Jerusik.
No further report tonight.
Thank you. Since there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We stand adjourned, ladies and gentlemen, until May 22nd. Thank you and good evening.
Okay. These cigarettes.